So when you contact the Board of Technical Registration, you'll be assigned the liaison, and that person will tell you what are the requirements. Requirements are similar for everybody, but not exactly the same. And I'll go through a list. Give me a second here. So the first application, the first round of application is simply to take the FE test, which is the fundamentals of engineering. This is the one you can take as soon as you graduate, and these are the requirements for taking it. You need a 4-year degree, which you'll all have. Then you pay $100 to apply. You need a proof of citizenship and official transcripts. And you'll need people to recommend you, but they don't necessarily need to be PEs, people that you work for, anybody like that would work. And what this gets you is the opportunity to take the FE. So once you fulfill your requirements to the Board of Technical Registration, what they'll do is send a kind of a green flag to the testing organization, which is independent of the state. And that's what NCEES is. NCEES is a testing organization for engineers and surveyors and other type of certifications. And the nice thing about this is that it's national and it's recognized by all the states. So as you go to test with NCEES, you set up a profile there, a record, if you will, and that record can travel with you, and that'll be important later if you want to get licensed in other states. So NCEES will know you're coming because the state of Arizona told them you were coming, and they'll see the test you want to take, and you can go to a testing center somewhere here in Phoenix. There's plenty of them, plenty of opportunities throughout the year. You go and take your FE, and if you're doing everything like the way I would recommend, you're going to do this very soon after your graduation. Just take your FE, get it passed, and just have that ace in your back pocket. So now you're an engineer in training is your designation, and you start working, right? You start accumulating experience, and what you'll find is that whatever job you take is probably going to be very focused and very specialized. You go to college and you learn all these things, right? But then you only actually apply a small sliver of that for your actual work. So you accumulate these at least a minimum 4 years experience. Then you start another application process. And those 4 years will be part of that requirement for the application process for your PE. So under those 4 years, you will need recommendations from licensed engineers, at least 3, or a combination of 2 and another engineer with a lot of years of experience that can be verified. So you do need kind of a sponsorship, if you will, people to speak on your behalf, and that'll vouch that you're working on engineering type work for some duration of time. And you go through a second application process with the state that is much like the first process that you, much like the first process that you applied for your FE, you'll be repeating almost everything for your PE. And if you look at the way I kind of set up my my files here, you'll see that I got a PE application. I kept all these court documents. I did 2 applications, references, transcripts, review courses. You keep all that because if you don't pass the first time, which I didn't, by the way, the second time you apply, you'll have all that ready, and you're really just using that same information to reapply. So after a successful application for your PE, then again, the state contacts NCEES and gives them a green light for you to take your PE test. But you only got a couple of chances in a year, and those are like highly scheduled. And there's people that are coming in from all over the country. We're lucky that they have the one in October. They have it here in Phoenix, so I didn't have to travel far for it. But there's people from all the surrounding states that come in to take it. It's an 8-hour test. You get 4 hours, then break, then another 4 hours, and it is pretty intense. It is largely an exercise in kind of mental stamina to stay sharp for the whole day. And I had to do it twice, right? The first time I failed, the second time I passed, and I would recommend a review course. Now you guys will be in a different situation because hopefully you're only 4 years out of school, so things are a little fresher in your mind. But I was nearly 12 years, and I might have forgotten stuff, but I don't even remember it ever learning it in the first place in a lot of situations. So it was kind of a going back all the way from grassroots level for me for studying. So I took, there's other classes like this, but I would recommend this Dr. Tom's. They have a tutorial, a whole kind of set 20-week review program for getting ready for your PE test. I took it and it was enlightening, learned quite a bit, and was able to pass the second time. So then I became a professional engineer, right? I had my license through the state of California, through the state of Arizona, but my work, most of my work is in California. Probably 80–90% of my projects are over there. So it was important for me to be licensed in California. The good thing about the way the states coordinate this with NCs is that every state has access to your NC's record. So it makes reciprocity pretty easy. So then you have to find, in this case, California, but any other state will have their own kind of department that that certifies professional engineers. For California, it's called the Department of the Board of Professional Engineers, Land Surveyors, and Geologists. But they'll take the same information that you had in NC's, your NC's record. There's some fees you have to pay, a couple forms you fill out, but it's pretty easy to get your second, third, fourth, fifth license in other states after you have your first one. So all in all, it's at least a 4-year process, probably more like 5 or 6 before you can get your first one. But then after that, you can kind of knock out your requirements for whatever state you operate in. More than likely, your job will have you operating in more than one state. It's pretty likely anyway, depending on what you're working on. So that's kind of the way it's done here. Do you guys have any questions?
I do actually. Hi, I'm Francisco Brown. I'm a graduate from ASU. First question, I guess, is what discipline do you have your PE in?
That's good. Okay, so I'm a mechanical PE, but the reason it's important is that my degree, my actual ASU degree, is in electrical.
Okay.
There's a situation where I got my electrical degree, but then I got the job, the career that I went in kind of just is mechanical. It's really like thermal heat transfer type of subject matter. And that's what I got my experience in. So I talked to the board about this. If you have your engineering degree, it doesn't mandate which PE you get. What mandates which PE you get is your experience. Your experience has to be in the discipline for which you'll apply for your PE. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. As just because I'm currently, so basically I already got my EIT, passed my FE, and then I'm preparing for taking the PE test right now.
Okay.
But I don't know if things have changed, or maybe I misinterpreted when I was reading the legalese, which I really hope didn't. But one with the citizenship question, just kind of like throw it out there. You don't have to be a citizenship of the United States to be registered, but as long as you live in the state, I believe. And then the other thing was just, this is more of a question, for taking the PE test itself. I believe you can take it online now. Well, certain disciplines rather, you can take them online at the Pearson testing centers around the country, and they offer that flexibility. However, I was wondering if it was possible to take the test but not apply to the license until you accrue the necessary experience to the board. Is that possible?
No, I don't think so. I think in order, see, so the state board is kind of the gatekeeper, and they're the ones that kind of determine whether you're eligible to take the test, and they won't let you pass that gate until they approve your application, and part of your application is that experience. So I don't think they'll send that approval to NCs for you to be able to take the test without you having the experience first. Now, yeah, I have. Give me a second here. State of citizenship. I'm not sure if this will probably clear that up, whether you have to be a citizen or not. I already had it open.
Yeah, well, at least for the EIT, because I'm not a U.S. citizen, but I was able to get the EIT. There's a there's a lot of options. Of course, if you're a citizen, it's a lot easier. If you're not, in my case, I had to prove I need my I-94, my was it my I-20 or it was one of the other documents. It was basically saying that I was in this country legally, basically.
Okay, yeah. So applicants who are not U.S. citizens or national, you complete additionally Section 3, which is your alien status declaration.
There you go.
So, yeah, it's another section. That's why I mean, the application process isn't necessarily equal for everybody. Some have to do more. I had a couple other things I had to do. You know, I had that long delay after I finished school. I got in trouble when I was young, so I had to go get some old court documents, stuff like that, that hopefully you guys don't have to do. Hopefully you guys are all good kids, you know, don't get in too much trouble. But yeah, so let me dig up an old email here. So my coordinator was a woman named Danielle Garcia.
Oh, that name rings a bell. Yeah.
Yeah. There's only like 2 or 3 of them. Let's see. Yeah, see, like these are all recommendations I had to get. I have a friend that became a police officer. They gave me a letter of recommendation. I think that looked good to kind of show them that I changed my ways. Yeah, she gave me the go ahead, and I had to do all that stuff before I took my PE. So you're in EIT right now.
Yeah.
Are you working?
Yes.
How many years are you into your career?
I'm a year into my career.
Okay. All right. So you're thinking put another 3, then take the PE test?
Well, actually, I have it scheduled for July. That's why I was hoping.
Okay. How did you schedule your test?
Through NCES.
Okay. So you didn't go through the state. You went straight to NCs.
Yes. So for both my FE and my PE, well, my FE I took it a year after my bachelor's, but I was still in school, and then my PE, basically I just asked around my company, and for what I was told is you can still take it as long as you take the NCS. Of course, I wasn't just gonna rely on people telling me, so I was reading through this document, and this is just in the state of Arizona, and I'm working from memory, so bear with me, but there's like a certain number of months of experience you have to accrue.
Yeah.
And for the FE, it's the 48 months, which is equivalent of a bachelor's. Whether that bachelor's takes 3 years or 6 years, it's still 48 months.
Right.
And then a master's degree adds, no matter if it's a year or 3 years, again, only adds 12 months, if I remember correctly. And then I think the total to get the license is 96, which makes sense, or 96, which makes sense. 48 for bachelor's plus 4 years of experience. Yeah. With a master's, they chop off 1 year, but that's to get the license. From what I remember, as long as you cross the 60-month threshold, you can take the test and just have the scores there in your record, so that once you actually apply, you can get. Now, so I'm trying to confirm that.
Yeah, you're saying the requirements are the same, but you can change the order. you can take the PE before you get the 4 years.
That's what I'm trying to confirm.
Okay. Okay. Do you have a coordinator with the state? Are we talking about state of Arizona? Is that where you're
State of
applying?
Arizona, yes.
Okay. Do you have a coordinator there?
Yes, Danielle, yeah.
Okay, Danielle, I think that's a good question for her. So you haven't applied to the Board of Technical Registration yet?
What was it again? Sorry, you cut off.
You haven't applied to the Board of Technical Registration yet?
Not for the PE, no.
Okay, just for the FE.
Just for the FE, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I could be mistaken about that. And that was probably not an issue for me because I was well into that 96 before I even started the process.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even ask the question, but that is a good question.
Okay.
You could take that. I would advise you take the PE as soon as you can.
Okay.
The sooner you're out of school, the better, if they allow it, of course, right?
Right.
Definitely, it's much harder to do it later. I still do everything the hard way, but now if you can do that for sure, and then you could just wait out your 3 years, right, and apply, and all the testing is done. Because the test itself is a big hurdle. Everything else, to be honest, is a lot of administrative. You do need help from a lot of people. People give you references to fill out these certificates, and then they got to send them directly to the board, right? There's some confidentiality there, so they don't want you asking somebody and then them giving you back the form and then you submit it to the state because they kind of want an honest opinion of your work. So make sure whoever you ask is somebody that's gonna speak positively about you. But you should have no trouble there. But it's a lot of forms, a lot of getting people involved, other professional engineers to vouch for you, and a lot of administration. But it's not difficult, just tedious. The test itself, I thought was difficult, and it took me a couple of attempts to get it done. But I think it's well worth it. I think depending on the research that you look at, PEs typically earn 7 to 15% more than a non-licensed peer, even if they're doing the same work. And in some disciplines, like especially like civil, you really can't operate without your PE. Civil engineers are kind of, you got to have it because almost all their work involves submitting wet sealed packages, right? When I say a package, I mean like a permitting package to an authority, like a city, a county, a state, feds, whoever that may be. They want whatever is submitted to them to be wet stamped with the PE seal. And almost all their work involves those kinds of documents. Mechanicals a little less so, although mechanicals do submit like piping plans, anything with equipment, stuff like that. And that's kind of where mine has come in. I haven't had to use it that often. Where mine comes to play, I think your opinion is weighted a little differently if you're a PE. When you go talk to people, to customers, whoever you're giving a recommendation to, right? You're telling somebody the way they should be doing things because that's part of your work. And I think it's weighted a little heavier if you have that license. It means a little bit more, and there's a little bit more at stake for you too. Stamping a drawing or a document that has mistakes in it isn't. It's not the end of the world. But you certainly don't want those to add up, right? Because it's all very traceable, and that's the big difference between being licensed and not being licensed. A non-licensed engineer doesn't even have to. I mean, it doesn't have that burden of putting their seal on whatever document they're submitting. What discipline are you in?
Chemical engineering.
Okay. All right. And that was what your degree was in also?
Yeah, well, I guess I'm working as an environmental engineer, but
Mm-hmm.
my background is in chemical engineering.
Okay.
And I'm getting my or the hope is to get the PE in chemical engineering.
Okay. Good. All right.
And thank you. That was really helpful, by the way.
Sure. Anybody else that want to introduce you? Can you see her? Can you see her? Mira esta. Mira. How do I con video? Mira, ¿quién está ahí? Mira. That's my baby here. That's how I work all day. That's my big baby behind me. Anybody else? Any other questions?
I have a few questions. So you talked about staying sharp for the rest of the day because you talk about like the exam being like 4-hour increments. So how exactly do you stay sharp? Because it sounds like the ACT all over again.
Yeah, you know, that's kind of it's a standardized test, kind of like that, and it's open book. But don't let that fool you because you don't have time. You don't have time to look through books to try to find how you're gonna handle something. You really have to be well prepared in any references that you take. You need to be able to know exactly what's in there and how to go find that reference right away. You certainly are not going to have time to be, you know, thumbing through a textbook, anything like that to help your way through the test. It's, you know, guessing doesn't hurt. So you kind of want to go through everything, answer the obvious ones. You know, there's going to be some gimmies there, and then kind of keep going through the test. And on each round, you know, pick up the level of difficulty. I would say, you know, it's kind of cliche, but make sure you're prepared ahead of time. You get a good night's rest before, and go in there with the right mindset that this is that you're in it. You know, you're in it for all day. It's going to be taxing. You're going to be drained, but you're there to compete, right? You're there to because it is a competition. It is a scaled kind of grading, and they're not really telling you what the passing grade is. They kind of take all the tests, all the results, they do some statistics, and then to determine what threshold is passing or not, right? So it's so you are competing with all the other test takers. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
You did. I also have another question. So you mentioned about how like this exam is in one place, right? Engineers from all over like take it in one spot. So you mentioned
Yes.
October was here in Arizona, but you said licensing in every state is different. Like,
yeah. So the organization for which that does the testing is NCEES. That's a national organization. All the states recognize that NCEES test. So the state doesn't do any testing. The state determines who should test, right? You apply to the state, and they determine whether you even qualify to test. And that's where I differ with, was that Edward or Fabian earlier? I'm not sure it was. My understanding was a little different. So the test, the once you apply and with the state, they kind of open up the gate for you to go test with NCEES. So that was here at the Phoenix Convention Center, and that's an NCEES event. That's an NCEES testing event, and that's where you go take the test, and then NCEES feeds back those results to all the different states in which their applicants reside.
oh, okay, that makes more sense. Thank you.
NCEES is national, and they're the testing organization, but you'll be applying for your PE for whatever state is applicable to you.
Awesome, that makes more sense. Thank you.
I have a question, actually. So I'm a computer system engineering as my bachelor's degree, and I'm a computer engineering grad student right now. I was wondering, because I know that PE is used to sign off on plans and documents and blueprints and things like that. For computing disciplines, is the PE necessary?
No, it's really not. I would say the only discipline it's absolutely necessary for is civil. I would say you can't be a working civil engineer, at least not for long, without a PE. All the other disciplines, it's kind of a boost to your resume. And with computer systems, you'd probably be testing. You know, electrical engineering is probably the closest to it, if they don't have a computer information type of test already, you know, kind of in its own category. But yeah, you don't need it, but it's I think it's a good thing to have. And if you're if you're about to graduate or graduated recently, I think it's cheap insurance to take the FE test and then see how your career turns out, right? If your career turns out where it goes off in a whole different direction where the PE isn't going to add much value to it, well, then you know what, you're out the $100 application fee and a little bit of your time. But if you're 4 or 5 years down the road, you're like, PE would help me here because this is the direction my career took, then that's already done, and you're now into taking your PE test. That's kind of my mentality. I think it's cheap insurance to take the FE right after school, or shortly thereafter.
Good, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's different stats. You can look, you can do different research on the web of what a PE means as far as dollars and cents, right? And it differs, but you kind of see those figures somewhere between 7 to 15% of additional salary that PEs tend to demand versus non-PEs. And you could take that with a grain of salt, depending on whose research you want to believe. But again, it's not much effort to take your FE, and then you'll see how your career goes, because I could have never guessed which way my career went. But here I am, and you really don't know how things are going to turn out for you. Who knows what you're going to be into? So it's a good thing to have, I think.
I have a question. Do you have to take the exam every time you want to get licensed in a new state?
No, that's a cool thing about the NC's organization here, which I'm circling with my cursor there. That is a national organization, and you will be making what they call an NC's record, and that's a record of you. The test that you've taken, you can upload all your documentations to there. Your certificate of experience, recommendations, applications. So then the next state will recognize this. All the states recognize the NC's organization. So that's the great thing about adding licenses. The first one's tough, right? The first one, you got to do everything from soup to nuts. But then the subsequent ones are really just an exercise in reciprocity in getting that new state to recognize what's in NC's, what's already built. Probably fill out a couple more forms and pay a fee. Pretty easy to add licenses after you got the first one. And you'll probably be operating in more than one state. Probably.
Thank you.
Lorenzo, sorry. And Lorenzo, quick question here. You mentioned that you had also a license with the state of California.
Mm-hmm.
How was that process like?
It was so easy. It was so easy because I already had the license in Arizona.
Okay.
So I already had like two legs of my stand, right? I had a license in Arizona, and I had an NC's record that was built while I was licensing in Arizona. Those are two major pieces. Then when I go to apply for the state of California, there's literally you literally click and say you kind of link your NC's record to your California application. I think there was another form or two I had to fill out, and I paid my fee, and that was it. Real easy. So states are pretty good about kind of recognizing the national authority and giving reciprocity. Yeah, much easier to get your second one. And if I wanted another one, I'm pretty sure it'd be easy process no matter what state it was in, because they all recognize the NC's organization. I think that's a good setup that for all the states to have one kind of one entity whose authority they recognize. That's a pretty nice feature about NC's.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And they call it something different, right? California calls it Board of Professional Engineers, Land Surveyors, and Geologists. So it's, you know, it's the same organization as the Arizona Board of Technical Registration. It's just called, called a different name. Kind of peculiar that engineers, land surveyors, and geologists are kind of grouped into one category from the state's viewpoint, I thought. But yeah, that's how it is. Anything else? Are any of you graduating soon or have already?
Right now, I'm a junior.
Okay. All right.
I graduated 3 years ago.
Okay.
And then December 20, well, I got my bachelor's and then stayed for grad school.
Okay.
That was December 2018. Yes.
So I got to tell you, so I, apart from my work, I do a lot of recruiting, right? Air Products is, always looking for talent. And that's a pretty strong combination. A master's engineer with a PE. I mean, you're talking about somebody that can speak with quite a bit of authority. And I think you're doing great. I think that's a great combination to have. I think having anything beyond your graduate degree, anything beyond your undergraduate degree, I think it's going to be worthwhile to you. And depending on how the economy is when you graduate and what the job market is, may be a good idea to just stay in school after you get your undergrad and add something to it, whether it's a master's engineer or a business degree, an MBA, something like that. That can always help, and that can always differentiate you, because the masses of engineers looking for jobs, I'm talking about young engineers, kind of people fresh out of college or undergraduate. So you're kind of grouped into a big mass of people, and anything you can add to that to kind of raise your head up above the crowd is going to help you quite a bit, I would think.
That's right.
What y'all think? Did it do all right? Is this okay? Is this helpful?
Yeah, very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Leslie has my email, and you're welcome to share it with whoever, Leslie, if you guys have any questions or need any help. Love helping young people try to do right. So feel free to send me a note, and we can talk about whatever your problems are.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? What should we talk about?
I think that's pretty much it, right, Leslie?
I think so. If no one has.
Oh, Ruby.
I have a question. Like, now that you have your PE, like, what's, besides actually having a certification, what kind of like jobs have you done that the PE has helped you like be able to do?
Okay, so that's a good question. So the role I'm in now is in our food segment. So I work a lot of food plants, and I know foods and engineering, it doesn't seem like, what's the connection? There's quite a bit of engineering in foods. When I say food plants, I'm talking about plants that produce tons and tons of food every day, whether it's meat or dairy, cheese, vegetables, all kinds of stuff. These are big food plants with big equipment. And in my case, thermal transfer, right? How do you remove enough energy from this potato, right, to take it from 100 degrees down to freezing, right? It's food, but it's really just material, right? So that's the kind of work I'm doing. Not too much of my PE is needed for this. In my previous job, which was up to a year ago, I was doing hospitals also. So my company, Air Products, sells industrial gases, a big one of which is oxygen. So any hospital you go to is going to have an oxygen system there, and people use this to breathe. So it's a life critical system, And anytime an engineer touches a medical oxygen system, he's probably going to be a PE. More than likely, to send, to use a non-PE person to do a medical system, you're kind of opening yourself from a legal standpoint. So that was a big example. And then there's also been submittals into like the city of Phoenix that required my seal or engineering memos. An engineering memo is, let's say you submit a permit package to some city or a county or any authority having jurisdiction, AHJ is what they're called. Anytime you submit an opinion regarding, a professional opinion regarding something about a system, they'll probably want your seal on that memo as well. So if there's a deviation, right, and some are easy, right? If the plans call for a 1-inch pipe and for whatever reason your customer bought 1.5-inch pipe, pretty easy to approve that. From an engineering standpoint, take a quick look, make sure everything's right from pressure standpoints and all that. And then you can word up a memo, seal it, and send it to the city saying, yes, this is okay to do. This is safe. This has been reviewed, and then things can move forward. So those are some instances in which having your PE is gonna help. Basically, anytime your opinion is an official recommendation of record, that's probably where a PE is gonna be, if not required, at least helpful.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think no one else has any more questions. You did a really good job answering everything. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, guys. Good luck to y'all. Keep grinding, keep working hard, and getting good grades and doing everything you're supposed to. Don't get in trouble, right?
Thank you. I have a quick question. Is it okay if I share this recording to the rest of our members who couldn't make it?
Sure, go for it.
Thank you.
All right.
I'll make
You
sure
can
to
share
share
my
your
email
email.
too, Leslie. You can share my email too if anybody has additional questions or.
Yeah,
You
I'll make
guys.
sure to do that.
Okay. All right, y'all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Bye.
Stay safe, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Stay safe. Bye.
Bye.
So what you think?
Oh, okay, bye.
I think it went well.
My
Oh wait, Cindy, stop recording.